Jack Nicholson. Have you ever wondered how someone can be at the very top of the world and then seemingly disappear without a trace? Think about it. One day you're one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. Every movie studio wants you. Every director dreams of working with you. Fans can't get enough of you. Then, almost overnight, you're gone. No farewell tour. No emotional retirement speech. No final blockbuster designed to close the curtain. Just silence. That's exactly what happened with Jack Nicholson. For decades, he wasn't just another actor. He was a force of nature. Whether he was terrifying audiences with a crazed stare, making people laugh with razor-sharp wit, or stealing scenes with nothing more than a grin, Jack Nicholson had a presence few performers have ever matched. Yet after 2010, something strange happened. The man who once dominated Hollywood slowly vanished from public life. Years passed, then more years. Rumors spread. Some people worried about his health. Others believed he was secretly preparing a comeback. Many simply wondered why one of the greatest actors ever decided to walk away. The truth is far more fascinating than most people realize. To understand why Jack Nicholson disappeared, we need to go all the way back to the beginning, because the story starts with a secret so shocking that it sounds like something from one of his movies. When Jack Nicholson was growing up, he believed he knew exactly who his family was. But he didn't. For most of his life, he thought one woman was his mother and another was his sister. That was the story everyone told him. That was the reality he lived in. Except it wasn't real. Years later, after he had already become famous, he discovered something that would completely change the way he viewed his own past. The woman he believed was his mother was actually his grandmother. The woman he believed was his sister was actually his biological mother. Imagine learning something like that in your late 30s. Imagine finding out that the people closest to you had hidden one of the biggest truths about your life since the day you were born. And the most heartbreaking part? By the time he learned the truth, both women were already gone. There would be no explanations, no conversations, no chance to ask why. Most people would probably be shattered by a revelation like that. But Jack Nicholson reacted differently. Instead of publicly falling apart, he processed it quietly, at least on the surface. Still, experiences like that leave marks. Growing up surrounded by secrets teaches a person to keep part of themselves hidden. It teaches them that some things are safer left unsaid. And when you look at the way Jack Nicholson lived later in life, it's hard not to see how those early experiences shaped him. Long before he became a legend, he was just another young dreamer trying to survive in Hollywood. And honestly, success didn't come quickly. In fact, for years it looked like it might never happen. Most people don't realize how close Jack Nicholson came to being forgotten entirely. Before the awards, before the fame, before the iconic performances, he spent years taking whatever work he could find. He wasn't walking red carpets. He wasn't making headlines. He was simply trying to pay bills. At one point, he worked around animation studios, running errands and handling small jobs while hoping for a break. The glamorous life people associate with Hollywood couldn't have felt farther away. But here's what separated him from countless others. He didn't quit. Year after year, he kept learning. He studied acting. He watched experienced performers. He absorbed everything he could. And while many aspiring actors waited for opportunities, Jack Nicholson started creating his own. He even turned to writing, because acting roles were so difficult to find. Then fate intervened. A role became available after another actor dropped out, and suddenly Jack Nicholson found himself in a movie that would change everything. That movie exploded. Almost overnight, audiences noticed him. Hollywood noticed him. And from that moment forward, his career entered a completely different universe. The following years became one of the most extraordinary runs any actor has ever enjoyed. Hit after hit. Classic after classic. Award after award. His performances weren't merely successful. They became cultural landmarks. People quoted them. studied them, copied them. His characters felt unpredictable, dangerous, and completely alive. You never knew exactly what he was going to do next, and that's what made him impossible to ignore. Eventually, Jack Nicholson became more than a movie star. He became a symbol of confidence, rebellion, charisma, freedom. For decades, it seemed like he would remain at the center of Hollywood forever. But while his professional life was soaring, his personal life was far more complicated. Relationships came and went. Some lasted years. Others ended painfully. People who knew him often described a man who loved deeply but struggled with permanence. One of his most famous relationships lasted nearly 2 decades. When it ended, it left scars that remained long afterward. As the years passed, something inside him appeared to change. The hunger that once drove him seemed to fade. The endless parties, the excitement, the constant spotlight, none of it seemed to hold the same appeal anymore. In interviews during his later years, he hinted at this shift. He spoke less about ambition and more about meaning. Less about fame and more about emotional connection. It was as if he had begun looking at life through a completely different lens. Then came his final movie. Few people realized at the time that it would be the last. There was no announcement. No farewell campaign. The film came and went. And then Jack Nicholson quietly stepped away. At first, nobody thought much of it. Actors take breaks all the time. Months turned into years. Years turned into more than a decade. Still, he never returned. Naturally, speculation exploded. Was he ill? Was he retired? Was he simply waiting for the perfect script? The rumors never stopped. But people close to him painted a different picture. They described a man who still loved movies. Still read scripts. Still paid attention to the industry. Yet he no longer felt compelled to participate in it. That distinction matters. Because there's a huge difference between being unable to do something and choosing not to. And according to those closest to him, Jack Nicholson was making a choice. A deliberate one. He wasn't running from Hollywood. He was walking away from it. On his own terms. On his own terms. For someone who spent decades being watched by millions of people, privacy had become the ultimate luxury. His world became smaller. Family became more important. Close friends became more important. Public appearances became increasingly rare. Then, after years of silence, something remarkable happened. In early 2025, audiences suddenly saw Jack Nicholson again. For a brief moment, he stepped back into public view. The reaction was immediate. People were thrilled, surprised, emotional. It wasn't because he delivered a powerful speech. It wasn't because he announced a new project. It was simply because he was there. A living reminder of an era many people thought was gone forever. And in that brief appearance, people saw something they hadn't fully understood before. Time had passed. The legendary rebel was now an elderly man. The unstoppable force of Hollywood was now someone moving at a slower pace. But somehow, that made the moment even more powerful. Because behind the fame, behind the awards, behind the larger-than-life image, there was still a human being. A man who had lived an extraordinary life. A man who had given audiences decades of unforgettable memories. And a man who had chosen to spend his final chapter away from the spotlight. Maybe that's the real reason Jack Nicholson disappeared. Not because he lost something, but because he finally realized he didn't need it anymore. After spending 40 years proving himself to the world, perhaps he simply wanted the one thing fame can never buy back: peace. And honestly, who could blame him? His legacy was already secure. His performances were already immortal. Nothing left to prove. Nothing left to chase. Just a life to live. And maybe that's the most fascinating ending of all. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments which legendary actor you'd like us to cover next. Until then, thanks for watching.